Hello! Welcome to Making a Dream Catcher with Kat. I'm really excited that you guys are able to continue crafting even with your time at home. I would love to see what you guys end up creating as well. So please leave a picture or a comment below and show me what you've got. If you have any other feedback that is helpful for you when making a dream catcher, please feel free to share that as well. But first, some random dancing. All right, let's talk materials. Most of the stuff y'all should be able to find around your house, and a lot of the things can also be substituted for other things. So we can make do with whatever you do have. So at first, you're gonna want a pair of scissors, tape, a popsicle stick. Now I have a cup full of assorted beads and such. We'll see what we end up actually using. I would also have some feathers. I don't have any at my house, but if you do have some, use them, throw them in the mix, and we'll see what we come up with. Up next is yarn. You can use other types of string. Traditionally they would have used leather and sinew, but anything that you guys do have will work. I like to use something a little bit thicker for the outside. It tends to speed up the process a little bit more, but when I'm working on the inside, I'll usually switch to something that's a little bit smaller and a thinner piece of string. This right here is a piece of embroidery floss. And the key here is you want something that's thin, but something that's really strong. You want to be able to pull and add all that tension to it without snapping. Now, the last and the most important material we'll be using today is water bottle. Okay, it's a very strenuous activity. We're going to be working really hard, breaking a sweat, so we want to make sure that we're staying hydrated. Okay. All right, so if you have all these materials, let's get going. Right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna wanna take our hoop, and we're also gonna wanna take a piece of masking tape. Pull off a little piece of tape, this size will do, and just kind of stick it off to the side until we need it. Next thing we're gonna take is our popsicle stick. When you're wrapping it, try to keep it towards the center of the popsicle stick. If you go towards one way, it will kind of fall off that side, especially if it's something like this, which is a little thicker. Okay, so once you've wrapped this around, I usually will wrap it for a couple minutes, and the bigger your hoop, the more you're gonna wanna wrap. So your next step is to take a piece of this yarn and cinch it down with your finger to the hoop, and then take your piece of masking tape. Don't worry about how clean the masking tape looks, it will get covered. All right, so now we have this connected. We're going to go ahead and take our popsicle stick, and we're basically just gonna begin to wrap and loop it around. Now you'll notice what I'm doing is I'm taking my other finger and I'm almost holding it in place. Once I get a couple of wraps, I will take this piece and I will push it down with my fingers and connect it, making sure that there's no gaps like this where I can see the hoop in between. Now this one could take a little bit amount of time if you do have a big hoop, so really settle in, okay? So what I did ahead of time is I went ahead and wrapped one before, and so you should end up with something like this. You'll notice that I'm using a multicolored yarn, and when it is wrapped, it will come up into a striped sort of design, which is pretty cool. Okay, so our next step here is now I'm going to pull out my embroidery floss. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start to work on the netting on the inside. I grabbed a second popsicle stick, and I already pre-wrapped it with the netting material that I want to use. Okay, so up next what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by tying this in a knot. Try to keep it nice and tight, but don't worry if there's too much of a tail at the end, we can snip that off. All right, so I have my hoop wrapped. I went ahead and tied a knot with my inside net string to my hoop. I like to kind of start at the top where the loop is, but you can start wherever you'd like. Now I'm going to keep my popsicle stick, I'm gonna roll it in so it's nice and close and keeping it nice and tight. If you have a really long string, it'll be a lot more work for you. Now I'm gonna go around the back. I'm going to pull my loop open and let my popsicle stick fall through. So you'll see that it's kind of over, it's almost like an around the back, through the loop, and then when you're ready and you like it, you're gonna pull towards the next one. So right now you can tell that I have a really big gap in this one, but not so big here. So before I go to my next one, I'm going to kind of release the tension of this, and I'm gonna scoot it to where it feels a little bit more even and where I want it to be. So maybe right about here. Okay, so now I'm gonna continue that all the way around. Completed the first row of my netting, and I've ended at the same place that I've started. So here's the part where people can maybe get a little tripped up. So from here, now we're not going to be using the hoop as our guide. We're going to be using all of these little string gaps that we've just created. So your next one is you're going to go up through this hoop, the loop, and you'll see now that there's 2 loops. This first one, by the way, looks a little funky. As we keep going around, it'll even itself out. Now you're gonna go through this hoop that you just created, and that's gonna kind of lock it into place. So I'll kind of slide that over, and it should be at the middle. So to do that one more time, you're gonna go through this one, and now you're going to go through this one. And it's going to kind of loop around and tighten right at the center. So before you get it to this tight piece right here, you're going to want to make sure that it's centered where you want it to be. So we're going to continue this all the way around like we did before. I've once again ended at the same place that I started, right by the loop. And what we're gonna do is gonna be the same all the way through. So now we're gonna, like we did before, we're gonna use these open spaces, and that's what we're gonna use to tie our next knot around all the way until we get to a center. We do wanna make sure we leave a little bit of a hole in the center because, like the tradition says, we want our bad dreams to get caught in the web and the good dreams to flow through that hole or down the feathers or the dangles at the bottom. So go ahead and keep working on that, and I'll zoom back over when I've completed the net and we're ready to tie it off. Now you can see as I get to the center, I took it off the popsicle stick because the stick got a little bit too big and it was harder to push it through the smaller pieces, and I'm doing it just by hand. The direction and the pattern will still stay the same. You're just going to be pushing it through with your fingers and pulling the tail of the string out with you. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just leave this circle in the center. Option 2, also add a bead in the middle. And then carry on like I did before. And then from here, I'm going to tie it off to around this and basically just tie it into a knot. All right, so this is tied off into a knot, and we're gonna go ahead and start on the dangles underneath now. Also, I wanted to offer, you can add beads at any time. It's just a matter of threading it on there and then continuing your wrap. Now to go forward, we want to add some things to dangle from the bottom. Now, there's a couple different options that we're going to try out today. So you can take a piece like this, fold it in half, and basically go around this with the looped side and thread it through the non-looped side. Now this is connected like so. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue this, and next time you see this, it will have a bunch of strings underneath. All right, friends, so here is the finished product. I went ahead and added a loop at the top, and as well as some different strings, yarn, and beads at the bottom. If you have some feathers, I definitely recommend doing so. And also, I took some of the yarn that was up top and did a little braid here, just to add a little bit of some different texture. Yay! All right, well that's a wrap for today. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I would love to see what you guys end up creating. All right, enjoy yourself. Bye-bye!